Whenever an electric vehicle spontaneously catches fire, or catches fire after a crash, it causes a big stir in the media. Now, this is partially due to EVs being relatively new in the market, so any news on EVs is big news. But truth be told, the odds of an EV catching fire are far lower than gasoline-powered cars catching fire. According to data from the National Transportation Safety Board, gasoline cars are 1.5 times more likely to catch fire than electric cars in the event of a fatal accident. And if you are to believe the suggested figures put forth by Auto Insurance EZ, then gasoline cars are 60 times more likely to catch fire. So, if you're concerned about safety, it seems like EVs are the only way to go, but hold on just a second. Because while EVs may catch fire less often, they need a lot more water to be put out, often reigniting for several days after an incident. The way they do so is actually similar to how a nuclear bomb works, but I'll explain that later in the video. Hello people of the internet, I'm Nico, a former electrical engineering student and a guy with 2 empty gas station gift cards in my wallet, and today I will be teaching you the dangers of EV battery fires translated into basic English. So, some basics of battery functionality. You will have seen the positive and negative terminals of a battery. They are there because of what makes a battery function, electrons. Now, imagine your average AA battery that you would normally put in a TV remote or a flashlight, but as an hourglass. The electrons are basically like the granules of sand. They move from one side of the battery to the other, and as they pass through, you can get them to do some work. If you imagine there to be a little wheel, like a water wheel, that catches the sand on its way down, that will represent the electrons doing work in a battery. Just in a battery, they would maybe power a light or something. Also, little asterisk, technically the granules of sand would have to leave out of the top and then go around in a circuit and then enter the bottom, but you get the idea. Now, there is also a separator that's made of plastic, and it separates the positive side of the battery from the negative side of the battery. And inside there are also some liquids or sometimes metal oxides, all of which lends batteries a very unique quality, that they are really bad with heat. And I know this firsthand. I was away one time visiting family for a few weeks, and when I got back, my little mini tablet that I had that I'd left in a shoebox right there off screen on my shelf, it had split in half since the battery had overinflated so much. And for one thing, if you don't know anything about me, I live in Alabama and we have disgustingly warm summers. And what must have happened is that the metal oxides in the battery must have released oxygen because of the heat, and that caused the battery to inflate and then split my little mini tablet in half. It was a tragic day when I got back. But back to the car batteries, several cheap EVs don't have good, if any, heat management systems for their batteries, which causes them to do the exact same thing as my mini tablet did, but with one extra step. And that extra step causes them to behave like a nuclear bomb, and that is not as much of an exaggeration as you might think. Let me explain. In the case a battery exceeds about 130 degrees Celsius, for my American viewers that's really damn hot, 2 things happen. First, the plastic separator melts, which means the 2 charged sides of the battery touch, causing it to short circuit. Second, because of the heat introduced by the short circuit, the liquids in the battery start to become gaseous, adding to the oxygen being released by the metal oxides. This causes the battery to expand and weaken the outer shell, and because there's now oxygen in the battery, along with materials that can burn, the sparks from the short circuit are the final straw, resulting in an explosion, which on its own would be relatively harmless. Yes, it's an explosion, but one battery cell exploding would not cause a fire like this. However, that one battery cell exploding releases enough heat to affect the battery cells around it, which in turn get too hot and explode, which causes a chain reaction among the hundreds, if not thousands of battery cells in any given EV's battery pack. And actually, this is the same kind of process a nuclear bomb goes through, in case you didn't know. It's not one tiny thing that explodes into a Super Mario-sized mushroom cloud. It's one small explosion that causes another explosion, and that explosion causes another explosion, and so on until you end up with that Super Mario-sized mushroom cloud, which inevitably is the backdrop in any scene in any Michael Bay movie you can think of. But unlike Michael Bay's CGI fires, EV battery fires are pretty tough to put out. The question is, what makes these fires so tough to put out? Fire is fire at the end of the day, is it not? Well, there are some real complications with EV battery fires. Firstly, EV battery fires can reignite thanks to their chemistry. The metal oxides will naturally release oxygen if the environment is too hot, so even if water were to put out the flame, if it's too hot around the battery, oxygen will be supplied and the fire will restart. The second issue is just getting to the battery cells. Battery packs are completely sealed off for safety reasons. I mean, you wouldn't want water or any kind of debris to get into your car's electrical system, and for good reason. Most EVs run at about 400 volts, which is over 3 times what your household outlet produces. So, getting water to those battery packs is tough. Manufacturers, though, are making sure that batteries are as safe as possible, and even if they were to catch fire, there are still protective materials within the battery which will give passengers enough time to get out of the car before the fire hazard becomes too dangerous. Thankfully, the odds of an EV catching fire are very low, but there are still some concerns with EVs that need addressing. Most crucially, there are the environmental impacts, but more alarmingly, there are some ethical concerns. Some of the materials used in batteries, such as cobalt, are mined using child labor, and while car companies are trying to move away from using these materials, it is not an easy transition. If you want to know more about the potential problems with EVs, I recommend watching my video where I detail the concerns about range and costs, among other things. If you want to know about the flip side of EVs, specifically debunking some common myths such as the longevity of batteries, I recommend watching this video when it pops up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like this. It's free and you can always change your mind later. I also have a Patreon page where I have some behind the scenes and outtakes from videos that aren't good enough to be free on YouTube. There's a link down in the description. Until next time, people of the internet, peace out.